Hey, listeners, ready to transform your sleep? Cozy Earth is all about lasting luxury and comfort. Their bamboo sheets have been called the world's softest sheets, cooling, moisture wicking, and unbelievably soft. And I can tell you they get better with every wash. And they have a 100-night sleep trial and a 10-year warranty.
But it doesn't stop there. They have bath, sleepwear, loungewears, and even skincare. Free shipping on orders of $50 or more.
Make sure you go to cozyearth.com, use our code INFOGO at checkout to save 21% off. You can find all of this in the show notes. Welcome to the podcast. I'm William.
And I'm Kat.
And that makes this Info on the Go.
Feeding your curiosity wherever you go.
It's rare that we do current events or what's in the news, but we figured we would. In the news, you probably heard the term heat dome, which is what Europe is experiencing right now with its 2026 heat emergency. So, Kat and I had the question, what is a heat dome?
As this episode is being recorded, millions of people across Europe are enduring one of the most intense stretches of heat in recent memory. Temperatures have soared well above 100 degrees Fahrenheit in many regions, with some communities pushing past 104 degrees. From the bustling streets of Paris to the olive groves of southern Spain, the historic cities of Italy, and the coastline of Greece, the relentless heat has transformed daily life. Authorities have issued widespread heat warnings. Schools have altered schedules, outdoor events have been canceled, and hospitals are treating increasing numbers of patients suffering from heat-related illnesses.
This isn't simply another hot summer day. Weather stations across the continent have recorded temperatures that are challenging or breaking long-standing records. And in some locations, nighttime temperatures have remained dangerously high, offering little relief after sunset. Without cooler nights, homes, will they retain that heat? Bodies struggle to recover, and the risk of heat exhaustion and heat stroke rises dramatically, especially for older adults and young children, and those with existing medical conditions.
The impacts extend far beyond personal comfort. Farmers are watching crops wither under the relentless sun while livestock face dangerous levels of heat stress. Rivers and reservoirs are shrinking, placing additional strain on drinking water supplies and hydroelectric power generation. Rail lines have slowed trains because steel tracks can expand and warp in extreme temperatures, while some roads have softened or even buckled. Energy companies are facing record breaking electricity demand as millions of air conditioners run around the clock, testing the limits of power grids across the continent.
So, what is causing this extraordinary weather? Meteorologists point to a massive dome of high pressure parked over much of Europe. This atmospheric feature acts like the lid on a giant pot, trapping hot air near the surface while allowing the sun to bake the ground day after day. The result is a dangerous cycle in which each day becomes hotter than the last, creating the condition for prolonged and sometimes deadly heat.
Now hold on tight with us while we explore how heat domes form and why they can linger for weeks, how they've shaped history, and whether events like the one unfolding across Europe today could become more common in the decades ahead. By the end, you'll not only understand what's happening now, but also why extreme heat is becoming one of the defining weather challenges of the 21st century.
To understand why Europe is experiencing such extraordinary heat, we first need to take a step back and look at the engine that drives our planet's weather. Every storm, cold front, and heat wave, well, it begins high above our heads, where powerful rivers of air circle the globe. And one of the most important of these is the jet stream. And this is a narrow band of fast moving winds located several miles above the Earth's surface. Think of the jet stream as a giant atmospheric highway, steering weather systems from west to east and helping to determine whether a region experiences sunshine, storms, or cooler temperatures.
Now, under normal conditions, the jet stream constantly shifts north and south in broad waves, allowing weather systems to move along at a steady pace. A cold front m- might cool an area for a few days before moving on, followed by sunshine, then perhaps another round of rain. This constant movement is one of the reasons the weather is always changing, but sometimes the atmosphere gets stuck.
And that brings us to the high pressure systems. If you've ever heard a weather forecaster say high pressure means clear skies, that's generally true. In a high pressure system, air slowly sinks toward the ground. As it descends, it becomes compressed, and compressed air warms. This warming process also dries the air, making it difficult for clouds to form. So, with a few clouds to block the sun, solar energy pours down day after day, heating the ground, roads, buildings, and, well, everything the sun comes in touch with.
Usually, these high pressure systems move along with the jet stream, but occasionally something unusual happens. The jet stream develops an exaggerated wave pattern that slows dramatically, almost like a river encountering a traffic jam. So, meteorologists call this phenomenon atmospheric blocking. Instead of weather systems continuing their normal journey, they become trapped in place. Storms are forced to travel around the blockage, while the air beneath it barely changes for days or even weeks.
And one of the most recognizable forms of atmospheric blocking is known as omega block. And this is named after the Greek letter omega. On a weather map, the jet stream, well, it bends into a shape that closely resembles the letter, with a strong ridge of high pressure trapped between two areas of low pressure. It's nature's version of a roadblock. Once an omega block forms, it can be remarkably persistent, locking weather patterns into place. So regions beneath the ridge experience prolonged sunshine, little rainfall, and steady rising temperatures, while areas beneath the surrounding low pressure systems, well, they may endure repeated storms and flooding. And by the way, the reason it's called the omega block is because the omega symbol. I think I missed that part, right? Which is basically looks
Um,
like a U.
I don't know, it looks kind of like a horseshoe to me.
It kind of looks like headphones,
Yeah, yeah,
like the emoji for headphones.
yeah, I can see that too. So, this is exactly the type of atmospheric setup that has contributed to Europe's current heat emergency. The high pressure ridge has acted like an enormous lid on the atmosphere, preventing cooler air from moving in and allowing the sun to relentlessly heat the land below. With each passing day, the ground grows hotter and the air becomes warmer, and the cycle feeds on itself. It's the perfect recipe for a heat dome. So, now that we understand how the atmosphere can become trapped in this pattern, the next question is even more fascinating. What exactly is happening inside a heat dome that allows temperatures to climb to such dangerous extremes? That's where we'll head next as we explore the anatomy of one of nature's most powerful weather phenomena.
So let's get into the anatomy of the heat dome. Now that we understand how the atmosphere can become locked into place, let's take a closer look at what actually happens inside a heat dome. Why does a simple area of high pressure become capable of producing some of the hottest temperatures ever recorded? And the answer lies in a fascinating combination of atmospheric physics, geography, and time.
So, imagine placing your hand over the top of a pot of boiling water. The lid doesn't create the heat, it traps it. A heat dome works much in the same way. The massive high pressure system acts like an invisible lid over a region, preventing cooler air from moving in and making it difficult for the warm air beneath to escape. Instead of rising and forming clouds, the air is forced downward towards the Earth's surface.
As that air sinks, something remarkable happens. It begins to compress. Anyone who's used a bicycle pump has probably noticed that the pump becomes warm after several strokes. That's because compressing air increases its temperature. And it's the same process that occurs naturally in the atmosphere. As air descends from several miles above the Earth, the increasing air pressure squeezes the air molecules closer together. This process, known as compression warming, well, it heats the air without adding any extra energy from the sun. And by the time the air reaches the surface, it's already warmer than it was when it began to descend.
The sun then adds another layer into the problem. With few clouds overhead, sunlight pours into the landscape hour after hour. Roads, rooftops, parking lots, fields, and buildings all absorb that solar energy. Those surfaces don't simply store the heat, they radiate it back into the surrounding air, making each afternoon hotter than the last. Overnight, many cities struggle to cool because concrete, brick, and asphalt slowly release the heat they absorb during the day. This creates a dangerous cycle where mornings begin warmer than the previous morning, allowing temperatures to climb even higher the next day.
Europe's geography can make this process even more dramatic. During many of its most severe heat events, winds circulating around high pressure systems, well, they pull hot, dry air northward from the vast deserts of North Africa. The Sahara Desert is one of the hottest places on Earth, where sometimes surface temperatures can soar well above 120 degrees Fahrenheit. When atmospheric conditions are just right, that scorching desert air is transported across the Mediterranean Sea into countries such as Spain, France, Italy, and even further north. Although the air may cool slightly during its journey, it still arrives extremely hot and dry, providing the heat dome with a fresh supply of warm air that it's able to work with.
That doesn't sound like a fun time to me.
It does not sound like a fun time at all.
So, this imported desert air combines with the ongoing compression, warming, and relentless sunshine, creating a powerful feedback loop. Dry soils lose their moisture, leaving less water available to evaporate. And normally, evaporation helps cool the ground, much like sweat cools your skin. But once the soil dries out, nearly all of the sun's energy goes directly into heating the land and the surrounding air instead. The hotter the ground becomes, the hotter the air becomes, and the more difficult it is for the heat dome to weaken.
Wow, I did not know that.
No, I didn't. It sounds unfortunate.
Sciencey. Perhaps the most frustrating characteristic of a heat dome is its persistence. Unlike a thunderstorm that passes in an afternoon or a cold front that moves through overnight, a heat dome, well, it can remain parked over the same region for days or weeks. The atmospheric blocking pattern that we talked about, well, it prevents weather systems from pushing that high pressure system away. Without a strong storm or a significant shift in the jet stream to break the pattern, the dome, well, it just sits in place and it allows heat to build day after day.
This persistence explains why heat waves often become increasingly dangerous over time. The first day may be uncomfortable, the third day, exhausting. But by the seventh or 10th day, communities begin facing serious health emergencies, water shortages, stressed electrical grids, and growing wildfire risks. The atmosphere has essentially become trapped in a reinforcing cycle.
Throughout history, these atmospheric giants have appeared before, sometimes with devastating consequences. And I think we're going to talk a little bit about some of those historic heat domes.
Yeah. So, heat domes may dominate today's headlines, but they are far from a new phenomenon. Throughout history, prolonged periods of extreme heat wave tested the limits of human endurance, devastated agriculture, strained infrastructure, and claimed thousands of lives. Each major heat event has left behind important lessons about weather, preparedness, and the vulnerability of modern society. By looking back at some of history's most significant heat waves, we gain a better understanding of why today's events deserve our attention.
Let's begin in the summer of 1936, during one of the hottest and deadliest heat waves ever recorded in North America. The United States was already struggling through the hardships of the Great Depression and the environmental catastrophe known as the Dust Bowl. Years of drought it had dried out farmland across the Great Plains, while poor farming practices left millions of acres of topsoil exposed to the wind. As a powerful dome of heat pressure settled over much of the country, temperatures climbed to astonishing levels.
In many communities, thermometers soared above 110 degrees Fahrenheit, with some locations approaching or exceeding 120 degrees. Homes rarely had air conditioning, making relief nearly impossible to find. Families slept on porches and parks or outside under the stars in hopes of catching a breeze that often never came. Livestock died by the thousands, crops withered in the fields, and railroads reported tracks expanding from the intense heat. Historians estimate that thousands of people lost their lives during the 1936 heat wave, making it one of the deadliest weather disasters in American history.
I mean, on top of the Dust Bowl, too. Yeah.
Right.
We need to do a whole episode on that. We'll add it to the shopping list.
Okay.
More than 4 decades later came another unforgettable summer. In 1980, much of the central and southern United States experienced another prolonged period of extreme heat. A sudden high pressure system parked itself over the region for weeks, bringing relentless sunshine, almost no rainfall, and temperatures that repeatedly climbed above 100 degrees. Cities from Texas to Missouri, they just baked in the unforgiving sun,
Baking. Mm.
baking in the sun.
No, thank you. Now, the heat placed enormous stress on agriculture. Corn and soybean crops suffered billions of dollars in damage as fields dried out and irrigation systems struggled to keep pace. Electrical demand reached record levels as air conditioners ran continuously, and utilities worked around the clock to avoid widespread power outages. Thousands of heat-related illnesses were reported, reminding the nation that with modern technology, extreme heat remains a serious public health threat.
And then came one of Europe's darkest weather disasters. During the summer of 2003, an intense heat wave settled across much of Western and Central Europe. Countries including France, Spain, Portugal, Italy, Germany, and Switzerland, well, they endured weeks of unusually high temperatures. Unlike many parts of the United States, air conditioning was far less common in European homes, hospitals, and nursing facilities.
The consequences were devastating. Hospitals became overwhelmed as emergency rooms filled with patients suffering from dehydration, heat exhaustion, and heat stroke. Many elderly people, particularly those living alone, were unable to escape the relentless heat. Scientists estimate that more than 70,000 excess deaths occurred across Europe during the event, making it one of the deadliest natural disasters in modern European history. In the years that followed, many countries dramatically expanded their heat warning systems, emergency response plans, and public education campaigns to better prepare for future heat emergencies.
And just when many believed they had seen the limits of extreme heat, well, 2021, a powerful heat dome developed over the Pacific Northwest, affecting parts of Washington, Oregon, and the Canadian province of British of Columbia. This region is known for its mild summers, making what happened even more remarkable.
Mother Nature said, "Hold my beer."
Mother Nature was like, hey, you know what? I can outdo that.
Oof.
Wait, did she drink beer or wine?
Maybe it's
She's
mead.
she probably had a Coke.
No, it was Pepsi.
No, it was Coke.
I don't think so. Anyway, temperatures climbed far beyond anything residents had experienced before. The Canadian village of Lytton,
I would say Lytton.
The Canadian village of Lytton, British Columbia, reached an astonishing 121.3 degrees Fahrenheit, setting a new all time national temperature record for Canada. Just one day later, a fast moving wildfire swept through the community, destroying much of the village within hours. Roads softened, electrical cables sagged, crops were damaged, and marine life suffered as coastal waters warmed beyond normal levels. Hundreds of people died during the event, and scientists around the world intensified their research into the relationship between atmospheric blocking patterns and climate change and extreme heat.
Although each of these historic heat events occurred in different decades on different continents and under different circumstances, they all share several striking similarities. A strong and persistent area of high pressure became established over the region. Weather patterns stalled day after day. Sunshine, it continued without stopping. Nights remained unusually warm, preventing people from buildings and landscape from cooling off. As the heat accumulated, the risk to human health, agriculture, transportation, and the energy system itself, it grew with each passing day.
History also reveals another important lesson. Societies adapt. So, after every major heat disaster, governments, scientists, engineers, and healthcare professionals learned valuable lessons that improved forecasting, emergency planning, building design, and public awareness. Today's heat warning systems, cooling centers, and emergency response plans exist largely because of the painful experiences of past generations. Yet, despite those advances, heat continues to be one of the world's deadliest weather hazards. As cities grow larger, populations age, and infrastructure faces increasing demands, understanding how extreme heat affects the human body becomes just as important as understanding the weather itself.
I say, Kat, before we get into human health, So let's take a small break.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I got to get a Coke.
I'll get a Pepsi.
Well, we should probably be drinking water to hydrate.
Probably.
We'll be right back.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
I came across Big Fork Brands recently, and it's become one of those finds you actually want to tell people about, and you don't find that often. Okay. They're doing bacon sausage, plus these really solid pork jerky snacks and Chicago style sauces. Basically, upgrade anything you throw them on burgers, hot dogs, fries, throw it on there. It works.
But I bet it's packed full of junk.
Actually, it's made with clean ingredients and real care. That's small batch with no shortcuts, and people are obsessed with the flavor. You can go over to bigforkbrands.com, use our code INFOGO at checkout, and get 20% off anything on the site.
You can find the link and our code in the show notes. All right, so now that we're back, we've talked a lot about the science behind heat domes and we've examined some of history's most devastating heat waves. But we need to talk about what happens to the human body when it gets too hot. Because extreme heat isn't simply uncomfortable, it can quickly become life-threatening. And in fact, heat is responsible for more weather-related death in many years than hurricanes, tornadoes, floods, or lightning. Unlike dramatic natural disasters that unfold in minutes, extreme heat is often called the silent killer. It doesn't tear roofs from homes or flood neighborhoods. Instead, it quietly places increasing stress on the human body until the vital systems they begin to fail.
That's scary.
I know working on the farm, we used to keep water and all kind of stuff with us to stay hydrated.
I mean, you got to.
Yeah.
Now, the human body is remarkably good at regulating its temperature. Under normal conditions, our core temperature remains close to 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. When we become too warm, our bodies respond by increasing blood flow to the skin and producing sweat. As sweat evaporates, it carries heat away from the body, acting as our natural air conditioning system. However, this cooling system does have its limits.
When temperatures become extremely high, or when humidity prevents sweat from evaporating efficiently, well, the body struggles to release heat as fast as it's absorbing it. At first, a person may experience heavy sweating, fatigue, muscle cramps, dizziness, headaches, or nausea. These are warning signs of heat exhaustion, a serious condition that should never be ignored.
If the person continues to overheat, the situation can rapidly become a medical emergency known as a heat stroke. During a heat stroke, the body's cooling system essentially shuts down. Core body temperature can rise above 104 degrees Fahrenheit. Sweating may stop altogether, and skin can become hot and dry, and confusion often sets in. Victims may slur their speech, become disoriented, suffer seizures, lose consciousness, or even slip into a coma. And without immediate medical treatment, heat stroke can damage the brain, heart, kidneys, and other organs within minutes. It's one of the few weather related emergencies where every minute truly matters.
Another major danger during this prolonged heat is dehydration. Every drop of sweat that cools the body comes at a cost. The loss of water and the essential electrolytes like sodium and potassium. As dehydration worsens, blood volume decreases, forcing the heart to work harder to pump oxygen throughout the body. Blood pressure may fall, the pulse, well, it quickens, and the body's ability to cool itself declines even further. It's a vicious cycle. The hotter you become, the more you sweat. The more you sweat, the harder it becomes to stay cool if fluids aren't replaced. So hydrate.
One of the greatest tragedies during major heat waves is that the people most at risk are the often those least able to protect themselves. Older adults are especially vulnerable for several reasons. As we age, our ability to regulate body temperature naturally declines. Older individuals often sweat less efficiently, may not recognize thirst as quickly, and are more likely to have chronic health conditions such as heart disease, diabetes, or even lung disease. Many also take medications, including certain blood pressure medicines, diuretics, and antihistamines. that can interfere with the body's ability to stay hydrated or even regulate heat.
Hmm. I did not know that because I take antihistamines.
Hmm.
Social factors also play a role. During Eu- during European during Europe's devastating 2003 heat wave, thousands of elderly people lived alone and well they had little contact with family or neighbors. Many didn't realize just how dangerous the heat had become, and they were physically unable to seek cooler environments. And that tragedy forever changed how many countries prepare for extreme heat, leading to wellness checks, public cooling centers, and improved emergency warning systems.
Young children are also at increased risk because their bodies heat up faster than adults, and they rely on caregivers to recognize the warning signs. Outdoor workers, athletes, first responders, and anyone performing strenuous physical activity face additional dangers because their bodies generate even more internal heat while already battling extreme environmental temperatures.
Where you live can make a tremendous difference as well. This brings us to another important concept known as the urban heat island effect. Cities are often several degrees warmer than surrounding rural areas because of the materials that they're built from. Concrete, asphalt, brick, rooftops. These all absorb the enormous amounts of solar energy throughout the day. And instead of reflecting sunlight or cooling through evaporation like forest and grasslands, these surfaces, they store the heat and they slowly release it long after sunset.
That's why walking across a parking lot on a summer evening can still feel like stepping into an oven even after the sun has gone down. Tall buildings can also trap warm air between city streets while limiting airflow, some researchers call urban canyons. Add millions of vehicles, air conditioners, and industrial equipment producing additional heat, an entire city can remain significantly warmer than nearby countryside throughout the night.
When we think about extreme heat, most of us picture uncomfortable afternoons, sweat soaked clothing, or the search for a cool place to escape the sun. But heat doesn't just affect people, it affects nearly everything we've built: roads, bridges, railways, power plants, airports, electrical grids. These were all designed to operate within certain temperature ranges. And when temperatures climb far beyond those expectations for days or even weeks, well, the infrastructure we depend on every day, it begins to show signs of stress.
One of the first places that stress becomes visible is on our roads. Asphalt, the black material covering many highways and streets, absorbs an enormous amount of solar energy. On a hot summer afternoon, the surface of a road can become far hotter than the surrounding air, sometimes reaching 150 degrees Fahrenheit or more. As temperatures continue to rise, asphalt softens, making it more susceptible to heavy traffic. Tire ruts begin to form, and in severe cases, the pavement can heave or even buckle as expanding materials push against one another.
And as cars continue to drive on it, it makes it even hotter.
Right.
Concretes face their own challenge. Concretes? Although concrete doesn't soften like asphalt, it expands as it heats. Engineers build expansion joints into highways to allow room for this movement. But during prolonged or extreme heat, these joints can be overwhelmed. The result can be dramatic sections of roadways that are suddenly lifting upward in what engineers call a blow up. These unexpected buckles create dangerous driving conditions, and they most always require emergency repair.
Railroads experience similar problems. Steel expands when heated, and railroad tracks stretching for miles across open landscapes can lengthen significantly during prolonged heat waves. Normally, tracks are carefully engineered to accommodate seasonal changes, but when temperatures soar well beyond normal limits, the steel can begin to warp sideways in a phenomenon known as sun kink. Even a slight bend in the rails can create a serious derailment risk.
To protect passengers and freight, railroad companies often reduce train speeds during periods of extreme heat. Slower speeds place less stress on the tracks and reduce the likelihood of accidents. While these precautions improve safety, they can also create delays that ripple throughout transportation networks, definitely affecting commuters, shipping schedules, and supply chains.
Air travel isn't immune either. Extremely hot air is less dense than cooler air, which reduces the amount of lift generated by an aircraft's wings. At airports with shorter runways or those located at higher elevations, pilots may need to reduce the amount of cargo or passengers on board to ensure a safe takeoff. In the most extreme situations, flights may even be delayed until temperatures fall later in the day.
Oh, wow. I didn't know half of that. Did you?
No, I didn't think about that for airplanes, too.
Perhaps nowhere is the strain of extreme heat more noticeable than on the electrical grid. As temperatures climb, millions of people, well, they reach for that thermostat, turning the air conditioner on full blast. Homes, businesses, hospitals, schools, factories, all of that demands more electricity. And exactly the same time, utilities often describe these periods as peak demand, when electricity consumption reaches its highest level of the year.
Meeting that demand isn't always easy. Power plants must generate enormous amounts of additional electricity, while transmission lines and transformers work around the clock to deliver it. Ironically, those same transmission lines become less efficient as they heat up. The wires expand and sag, increasing the risk of equipment failures and making the electrical system even more vulnerable during the time it's needed most.
If the demand exceeds available supply, utilities may ask customers to voluntarily reduce electricity use. In more severe situations, operators may conduct rolling blackouts, and this is to prevent a complete collapse of the electrical grid. During a heat wave, losing power isn't merely inconvenient, it can become life threatening, especially for those people who depend on air conditioning, medical equipment, or refrigerated medications.
One of the most surprising consequences of extreme heat involves nuclear power plants. Nuclear reactors produce enormous amounts of heat while generating electricity, and that heat must be removed continuously to keep the reactors operating safely. Many nuclear facilities rely on nearby rivers, lakes, or coastal waters as cooling sources. Water is drawn into the plant, absorbs excess heat through specialized cooling systems, and is then returned to the environment.
During an extended heat wave, however, rivers themselves become unusually warm. Environmental regulations limit how warm discharged water can be because releasing excessively heated water back into the river, well, it can harm fish, aquatic plants, and entire ecosystems. So if the river is already approaching those temperature limits, power plant operators, they may be forced to reduce electricity production or temporarily shut down reactors altogether. And this is to avoid overheating the surrounding environment.
This creates an ironic and challenging situation. Just as millions of people are demanding record amounts of electricity to stay cool, some of the very power plants supplying that electricity may have to produce less of it because the water they rely on has become too warm.
So while most of us experience a heat dome as an inconvenience or at worst a health risk, for farmers, it can determine whether an entire year's work succeeds or fails, because agriculture depends on a delicate balance of sunshine, rainfall, soil moisture, and temperature. When that balance is disrupted for days or weeks of relentless heat, well, the effects ripple far beyond the farm, eventually reaching the grocery stores and the family dinner table, not to mention your pockets.
Plants, like people, experience stress under extreme conditions. During prolonged heat, crops such as corn, wheat, soybeans, rice, and vegetables begin to conserve water by closing tiny pores on their leaves called stomata. While this helps prevent moisture loss, it also slows photosynthesis, the process plants use to convert sunlight into energy. Growth slows, pollination can fail, and yields decline.
Timing, timing, timing is everything. A cornfield may appear healthy one week, but if extreme heat strikes during pollination, kernels may never fully develop. Fruit trees may drop blossoms before the fruit can form. Vegetable crops can become smaller, tougher, or sunburned, reducing both quality and quantity. Even vineyards producing wine grapes can experience changes in sugar levels and acidity that, well, it will alter their flavor for future vintages. Hmm.
Livestock face an equally difficult battle. Cattle, pigs, poultry, and other farm animals generate body heat simply by eating and moving. During extreme temperatures, they struggle to cool themselves. Dairy cows often produce less milk, chickens will lay fewer eggs, and beef cattle gain weight more slowly. Farmers may install additional fans, cooling systems, or misting equipment, but those measures require electricity and water, resources that may already be in short supply during a heat wave.
The agricultural impacts don't remain isolated in rural communities. Reduced harvests, well, it can lead to higher food prices, shortages of certain products, and increased pressure on global food markets. In our interconnected world, a major heat wave affecting one region, well, it can definitely influence grocery prices thousands of miles away. So, extreme heat reminds us that food scarcity, well, it begins long before we walk into that supermarket.
No discussion of modern heat waves would be complete without addressing one of the most frequently asked questions and sometimes most debated questions. Is climate change making heat domes worse? To answer that fairly, it's important to separate what scientists have established with strong evidence from the questions that researchers are still actively studying.
There is a broad scientific agreement on several key points. First, Earth, well, the average surface temperature has increased over the past century, while the most rapid warming is occurring during the past several decades. A warmer planet means that the baseline from which heat waves begin is also warmer. In simple terms, if the atmosphere starts out hotter, extreme heat events have the potential to reach even higher temperatures.
Scientists also agree that heat waves are becoming more frequent in many parts of the world and that many are lasting longer than they did historically. Observational records from numerous countries show an increase in both the number of extremely hot days and the duration of prolonged heat events. As average temperature rises, weather conditions that were once considered rare are occurring more often.
Where scientific research becomes more complex is in understanding the behavior of individual heat domes and atmospheric blocking patterns. Researchers continue investigating whether climate change is altering the jet stream in ways that make blocking patterns more persistent, or whether natural weather variability still plays the dominant role in determining when and where a certain heat dome forms.
Another area of ongoing research involves regional differences. Some parts of the world appear to be experiencing stronger increases in extreme heat over others because of local geography, soil moisture, ocean temperatures, urban development, and atmospheric circulation. Scientists are working to better understand how all of these factors interact.
One point that many researchers emphasize is that climate change doesn't cause every heat dome. Heat domes occurred long before the Industrial Revolution and have been part of, well, Earth's weather system for centuries. What a warmer climate may do is increase the likelihood that when those weather patterns develop, they occur in an atmosphere that is already warmer, allowing them to produce higher temperatures and in some cases even have greater severe impacts.
As research continues, one thing is becoming increasingly clear. Preparing for extreme heat is no longer simply about responding to unusual weather. Communities around the world are investing in better forecasting, improved emergency warning systems, heat resistant infrastructure, expanded tree canopies, and smarter city planning to reduce future risks.
So here's the big question. What can we do about it? The truth is that we can't prevent a heat dome from forming. These are natural weather patterns that have occurred throughout the history. What we can do is prepare for them, reduce their impacts, and build communities that are better equipped to handle prolonged periods of extreme heat.
One of the simplest and most effective tools available during a heat emergency is the cooling center. These air conditioned public buildings, such as libraries, community centers, schools, churches, or facilities that open their doors to anyone needing relief from dangerous temperatures. For someone without air conditioning, spending just a few hours in a cooled environment can significantly reduce the risk of heat related illness.
And many communities also organize transportation to cooling centers for elderly residents or those with limited mobility. Volunteers and emergency responders often conduct wellness checks, ensuring that, individuals are safe, hydrated, and able to escape the heat. Sometimes a simple phone call or a knock on a neighbor's door, it can save a life.
Another critical advancement is the development of heat warning systems. Decades ago, weather forecasts focused primarily on temperature. Today, meteorologists consider humidity, overnight temperatures, wind conditions, and the expected duration of a heat event before issuing alerts.
Many countries now use tiered warning systems that escalate as conditions become more dangerous. These warnings trigger coordinated responses from hospitals, emergency management agencies, schools, utility companies, and local governments. Public health officials encourage people to stay hydrated, avoid strenuous outdoor activities during the hottest hours, and to wear lightweight clothing and never leave children or pets inside parked vehicles ever, not even for a second.
Technology has also transformed how we prepare. Smartphone alerts, weather apps, social media, and emergency notification systems can warn millions of people within seconds, giving families time to adjust plans before dangerous conditions arrive.
Looking even further ahead, cities themselves are, well, they're starting to change. Urban planners are increasingly recognizing that the way, the design of the communities they can either amplify the heat or help reduce it. Trees, for example, they do more than beautify neighborhoods. The shade can lower surface temperatures and help give some of that humidity back into the air. Expanding urban forests have become one of the most cost-effective ways to combat urban heat island effect.
Architects are also designing buildings with reflective roofs, lighter colored materials, improved insulation, and natural ventilation systems that reduce indoor temperatures without relying entirely on air conditioning. Some cities are experimenting with cool pavements that reflect more sunlight instead of absorb it, while others are creating more parks, green roofs, and shaded public spaces to help neighborhoods stay cooler.
So the cities of tomorrow may look different decades from now than what they do now. Could heat domes become the defining weather story of the 21st century? It's really a question without a simple yes or no answer, but there's little doubt that extreme heat is becoming more of the most closely watched weather hazard on Earth.
Unlike hurricanes that strike coastlines or tornadoes that affect relatively small areas, heat domes can cover entire countries or even continents. They don't usually arrive with dramatic images of towering storm clouds or crashing waves. Instead, they quietly settle in, day after day, pushing temperatures higher, drying rivers, straining power grids, damaging crops, and placing millions of lives at risk.
It's especially challenging because it influences public health, agriculture, transportation, energy production, water supplies, wildlife, pretty much every aspect of what we know in our lives. Emergency warning systems, they save lives. And scientists, well, they continue to improve their understanding of atmospheric patterns. And engineers are designing stronger infrastructure. And farmers, they're developing heat tolerated crops. And communities around the world are planting trees and creating cooler, more resilient neighborhoods.
History teaches us that humanity has always adapted to new environmental challenges, from the deadly heat waves of 1936 to the European disaster of 2003 and the record breaking temperatures of 2021. And today, every event has provided lessons that help us prepare for the next one.
I guess the big takeaway here is if you're experiencing one of these heat waves, hydrate, hydrate. Actually, even if you're just hot and your body's not producing sweat, that ought to be a big sign that you're dehydrated.
Right.
And if you're going through extreme weather or, power outages, check on your neighbors.
Right. Be neighborly. Make sure
Yeah.
they're okay.
Tell them William sent you.
Yes.
Be like, info on the go told me I had to knock on your door. Are you okay?
Right. It's pretty hot out, man. Just coming to check on you.
Do you need a Gatorade?
Right.
Yeah, Coke would not be the right thing because caffeine is a diuretic.
It is a dehydrator.
Yeah, so, water and something to replace those electrolytes.
Yes. If you would like to support this podcast, tell a friend and help get the word out.
If you would like to support this show, you can do so at Patreon or take advantage of some of our sponsors. Those links are in the show notes. And right now, Kat and I have opened up Patreon entirely free, so go check it out.
And as always, William and I want to thank you for listening.
Whether you've been with us from day one or just tuned in, it's a big thank you.
Join the Facebook group at Info on the Go
Over there, you can get to know us.
or ask us a question.
But whatever you do, make sure you hit that follow button wherever you're listening to this podcast.
Send us some fan mail using the link in the show notes or leave a review.
We love fan mail, we love reviews, and you can also email Kat or myself directly at
infoonthegopodcast@gmail.com.
and all of this is in the show notes. Till next time.
Stay curious.
Every morning starts with a choice. Don't settle for just coffee. Rise up with strong coffee. Meet the world's strongest cup of joe. Strong isn't just a drink, it's a movement. And strong stands for striving to reach our natural greatness.
Born from one simple need to be better. They rebuilt coffee from the ground up, infusing organic coffee with collagen, protein, nootropics, and functional ingredients that fuel your body and sharpen your mind. There's no crash, no compromises, just clean energy, focus, and flavor that fires you up.
Whether you're chasing kids, chasing goals, or chasing greatness, don't just wake up, rise up. Strong coffee, the world's strongest cup of joe, for a world ready to be better.
Use code INFOGO at checkout to save 15%.